We're breaking down the beasts of the Blueline Brigade on the latest episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Fantasy Draft Prep rolls on, breaking down the top 10 fantasy D-men in the NHL, 10 through 6. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You heard the music, and you know what time it is. It's time for your daily source for fantasy hockey, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Tuesday edition. Shout out to the everydayers. Thank you. Much love and salute for holding us down and making us your first listen every single day. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's right. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. My friends, I threw out a lot of B's, alliteration, off the top for the Blueline Brigade. Steele, this is one that I am very excited to talk about. And when you look at some of these pieces, we're breaking down the top 10 fantasy blue liners in the game. Today's episode 10 through 6, Wednesday's episode 5 through 1, and we're going to get to left wing, center, and right wing as we round out the week and into next week, more mock drafts and everything you need for fantasy draft prep. However, Steele, looking at these names, I thought about this in preparation for today's show. If somehow, and I know you and I have a couple of honorable mentions here comes the sun blinding you out, pal. Get those power shades working. There he goes. These are the players, though. If somehow you can manage to get more than one of them, your team is going to be hard to beat in terms of head-to-head leagues. Obviously going to be a good one in any kind of format. But I just am excited to talk about it, my friend. 10 through 1. I got some honorable mentions. I think you do as well. Over to you. Who are you looking at? I'm already excited to dive into this one.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get straight to number 10, and maybe I'll mention my honorable mention later, just to throw a little more salt in that wound your way, because I know who you've got. A little bit disappointed about him leaving, me leaving him off my list, but I'm going to use a couple of more B's to describe this player at number 10. Banger League beauty, Moritz Seider comes in at number 10 for my top 10 defensemen fantasy-wise in the NHL this season. Moritz Seider is that number 10 defenseman I am looking at right now. I think he's going to have a stepping out season for the Detroit Red Wings on their blue line. He is by far their best defenseman. He does it on both sides of the ice. He brings the physicality. He does it. He puts his body on the line. He brings the bang every single time he is on that ice. He hasn't missed a single game in his 3-year NHL career so far. Played all 82 regular season games. And this Detroit Red Wings team is looking up right now. Steve Yzerman's got the plan, and he's got it in motion right now. They bring in Tarasenko. They bring back Patrick Kane. They bring in that top line again of Raymond, Larkin, and DeBrincat, which had some really good chemistry last year. Tyler Mott into the bottom 6, which I really like that addition as well. And then obviously they had to fix some of their goaltender problems and the goalie carousel they went through. So they bring in Cam Talbot, my boy, who I have a lot of respect for and a lot of faith in to do a great job this season in Detroit. But the Red Wings were a top 10 team in goals for last year. They finished the season with 278 goals for, which was 9th best in the league. They also had a top 10 power play in the league as well. So I think it would be foolish for Seider not to be quarterbacking that top power play unit. I think he deserves it right now. I think he's going to get it. He does well on the first power play unit as well. But when you look at what he brings right now, back-to-back seasons of 42 points, like I said, he doesn't miss any games right now. Career high 9 goals last season, 33 assists for 42 points. A little bit down in the shot category, down from 140 to 135. So I would like to see that get a lot higher like we saw in his rookie season of 187 shots. Even with that being said, he did have a career high shooting percentage of 6.7. And then obviously, like I said, Banger League beauty, 213 blocks, 211 hits, 51 penalty minutes. I love the peripherals that this player fills out. And again, I think it's going to be a stepping out season because of the trajectory I'm seeing this team move in. They're moving in the right direction. Top 10 in goals for, top 10 power play unit. I think he's going to have a stepping out season. I expect 55, maybe 60 points on the high end for Seider this season.
Well, as much as I know you and I are going to disagree on a lot of this list's rankings, my friend, Mo Seider comes in at 10 for me as well. Off to a good start here for the sake of arguments.
There we go, baby.
Let's save it for the rest of the episode. You covered it nicely. And this is a player that's not exactly the most gifted offensively in terms of a high-end skill set. However, he makes up for it in all of the angles that you covered, and he is absolutely critical to the success of this Detroit Red Wings team. And I know that's not something that translates into a fantasy category, but what I'm playing into is last year averaging 22 minutes of ice time a night, Steele. This guy's got workhorse written all over him. And at 22, 23 years old here, not even scratching the surface of his prime, I think numbers go up along with time on ice. And you in the deployment on the power play, I think this Detroit Red Wings team, if they can figure out somebody to take that blue paint, we talked about 4 goaltenders in camp for this team. Husso, Campbell, Lyon, I'm forgetting the 4th.
Talbot now.
Thank you very much. So if they can get somebody to hold down that blue paint, I'm liking this angle even more so. He comes in at 10. Let me spit out my honorable mentions very quickly because I know I'm going to get some heat for this one. Josh Morrissey doesn't make my top 10. He's an honorable mention. Charlie McAvoy doesn't make the top 10. Honorable mention. And 2 players that they don't make the top 10, Steele, but I'm very, very high on for this season. Mikhail Sergachev, I'm banking on him going back to the old Mikhail Sergachev, and if that's the case, he's knocking on the door for the 10th spot. And
100%.
I'm high on Luke Hughes, so I got to throw out Luke Hughes.
Okay.
I don't think he deserves to be top 10. That would be a reach.
Not yet.
He's knocking on it, and I just had to throw it out there because I do think if in any keeper dynasty situation that you can get your hands on him, I would prioritize it. However, I got our boy Mo Seider at 10. Hit me with who you got at 9, and then let's giddy up on the rest of this list.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll mention my honorable mentions right now as well.
You might as well.
It also is Josh Morrissey on that list. I also have Dougie Hamilton as an honorable mention. So another New Jersey Devil defenseman on the blue line. And I know you're going to hate this. Miro Heiskanen is an honorable mention for me. He doesn't make the top 10. And we'll get into that when I know
you will.
I know for a fact he'll be in yours. So we'll get to that reasoning.
Yes, we will.
As to why I left him off there once we get to him. But at number 9, real quickly, I've got Victor Hedman as my 9th player, 9th defenseman off this top 10 list moving forward fantasy-wise. I mean, obviously with the trade for Mikhail Sergachev going to Utah, this opens the door once again for Victor Hedman to be that number 1 guy, which he was last year again for this Tampa Bay team, but now it's solidified. He had a great season last year, obviously after a down year the year prior in 2022. I know the age is up there. He's 33, going to be 34 years old soon, but back to a 76-point player last season in 78 games, 13 goals, 63 assists, over 24 and a half minutes of average ice time last year. Again, he's going to be the quarterbacking that first power play unit alongside Nikita Kucherov, alongside Braden Point, alongside Jake Gensel now in the lineup. He's going to continue to dominate. And again, looking at the lineup right now, Darren Radish, who I mentioned as a last effort defenseman, my boy over there in Tampa, Ryan McDonough, JJ Moser, these are good players in the mix, but Victor Hedman is the bread and butter who gets everything going on that blue line. And again, quarterbacks that top power play unit, fills out the peripherals pretty decently as well. Not so much recently as he gets up there in age, but he's down to 168 shots, 102 blocks, and 65 hits. But it's really the offensive side of what he brings to the table that you're looking out for. Goals, assists, power play points, and then chips in a little bit with those peripherals. So he comes in at number 9 for me. He's going to continue to be elite player for this Lightning team.
So you have him at 9 too? Wow, our lists are coming along very nicely.
Wow, okay.
I thought today was going to be a bit of a bloodbath here. Let's wait for my Miro Heiskanen take coming up around the break. However, Victor Hedman's age plays into this here for me, and I know that's not an angle that you can always bank on, but I'm a 6'7" large man myself, and I don't play pro hockey, and there is a lot of mileage on this man's body, and he is a big physical individual. And at some point, that is going to have an impact on a player that, because of the success and a lot to do with his own success, a Conn Smythe and a Norris Trophy winner still. You know, I like to get those trophy plugs in. this is just one of those angles. Victor Hedman could have been way up this list a couple of years ago. He might even be a top 4 guy. The age, all the mileage, and all of these young studs coming up. It's not even a detraction to Victor Hedman. It's an indication of how good these young D-men are, especially up the top of this list, because he is just so effective on the ice. You mentioned his peripherals. You mentioned, 76 points, 76 penalty minutes, eating almost 25 minutes of ice time per night. He's a banger league beauty and a darling on the back end that I have on my own keeper team, and he's not going anywhere at least for the next season or 2. Will there be a drop-off soon? Probably, but not this year, not with Jake Gensel in the lineup now. That top power play unit's going to be lethal. The rest of today's episode will be equally as deadly. We're going to talk about some of our other favorite blue liners in the game. I'm going to chirp Steele at least for one of his guys that he has up here. I'm going to talk about Miro Heiskanen, 5 through 1 in our top blue line countdown on tomorrow's episode. Don't miss Mock Draft Mondays. And also, don't miss out on a single chance to be weigh-in wagers on FanDuel Sportsbook. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And you've heard us talk about it a lot on this show, but today we have something a little different for y'all now. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then use a YouTube base plan. You'll be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Visit FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Make sure your second listen is the Locked On NHL Podcast. Locked On NHL provides you with a national perspective on all things NHL each and every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Continuing the discussion and topic for today's episode, top 10 fantasy hockey defenseman for this upcoming season, 2024-2025. Couldn't be more excited. Less than a month away for puck drop, and we're excited for it. That's why we continue these top 10 breakdowns. Number 8 on my list, Flip. I don't know if you were joking beforehand before we jumped on here, but Noah Dobson. Noah Dobson is coming in at number 8 on my top 10 defenseman fantasy hockey-wise list. I love this player a lot. I love this player. Might not be the prettiest team, might not be the prettiest player to watch, but he gets it done, and he's getting it done because he is the top quarterbacking defenseman for this Islanders squad right now.
Yeah.
Big season last year. We expected a breakout season, which is exactly what he did. 70 points in 79 games played, 36 penalty minutes, 174 shots, which was actually down from the year prior. 180 blocks, 84 hits. He's physical. He puts his body on the line, but it's really now him taking that leadership role on the blue line at such a young age, if you don't mind me saying, as well as him just being able to jump into the rush, notice things, and be aware of his surroundings to make the quick play in the defensive zone, jump into the rush, and join his line mates when he gets that opportunity. So, of course, he's still developing. He's still learning. But at 24 years old, soon to be 25, actually, first round 12th overall pick back in 2018. He is really being one of those elite defensemen right now. I'm not ready to put him in that top tier of the other guys we've mentioned from young studs right now on the blue line, but he's getting up there right now with what he's doing. Another 70-point season will have me. He'll be on the watch list continuing moving forward for me. Noah Dobson makes it at the number 8 position moving forward for this upcoming season.
So now I'm really impressed because now I actually know that
Dobson.
you have yeah, but now I'm looking at your graphic here and thinking you have Mackenzie Weegar ahead of Noah Dobson. We are going to get heated in a second. So number 8 is Noah Dobson. And look, he's also just a very smart player. And
yes,
look,
very
the
smart.
New York Islanders were the worst penalty killing team, I think, in the NHL last year, or right at
12%.
Yeah,
power play was 12%.
The penalty kill, they were the worst in the NHL. So he was a little bit of a victim, I think, of the team around him, because I think you and I have also mentioned this. If he's on a more offensive-minded club, he might already be touching 80, 90 points. He's that good, in my opinion. I think you'll back me up on that. Offensive skill set. He finished 8th in Norris voting last year, Steele, at 24 years old. This is going to be a name and a force to be reckoned with on the blue line in fantasy circles, and I mean up there in the elite. Like next year, like you said, year next after that, I'm looking at him as top 5 material, and that's a stretch considering how good the top 5 we have coming up on tomorrow's episode. Anyway, we're going to have to save our talking points for the rest of this list, because let me just spit it out. The New York Islanders around him, they only really brought in Anthony Duclair in the offseason. This has been a team perennially known for their lack of scoring depth. And when you look at Noah Dobson, who's already eating almost 25 minutes a night, 180 block shots, Steele, 36 penalty minutes, you see the 174 shots on net and hope it goes up. The risk with this player is the Islanders squad around him, the quality that they have. Are they good enough to be a playoff team? For sure. But fantasy-wise, offensive production-wise, that's one of those reasons we got to separate their quality on the ice in terms of winning games and what they offer fantasy-wise, and that will impact Noah Dobson. However, I'm rambling now. Dobson at 8. We're in synchronicity right now, and I think it's about to go right off a cliff, so I'm excited for this.
Yeah, exactly. I'm very surprised we have the same defenseman 10 through 8 so far, but this is definitely where we take different paths of where we're looking at defenseman right now.
I don't mean to cut you off at all. I'm surprised you had Victor Hedman on here, and after that, the other ones make sense. So I like it. I like it a lot. Who you looking at next? Then let's get to break.
Well, I'm surprised that you're surprised that I have Victor Hedman. Of course I have Victor Hedman on this list. Look, he's the top dog now. Sergachev's gone. He's not in the shadow anymore. It's Hedman's spotlight. He embraces that position. He embraces the light, and it's his place on that blue line. So, of course, he makes the top 10 for me. Number 7 on my list. This is where we go down different paths. Number 7 on my list, Mackenzie Weegar is a top 10 fantasy hockey defenseman. When we talk about categorical leagues, he is by far a top 10 defenseman. There's no question about it because of what he does on both ends of the ice. He's capable of playing in all game situations. Like I said, on either side of the ice, he's got lower body strength where it helps him maintain puck possession, win the board battles in the defensive zone. And he's now a capable puck mover and smart offensive defenseman who jumps into the play. Like I said, he has a howitzer of a shot. And you know me, the peripheral categories is what I'm looking at from Mackenzie Weegar. 194 hits, 200 blocks, 208 shots on net, 52 points last year, obviously a career high. I do expect a little bit of a dip down in the point total for Mackenzie Weegar. He's never, ever before had 20 goals in his career. He's never hit double digits in goals in his career so far. So I expect him to be down in the goal category. I do actually expect him to get back to double digits once again because he is the top blue liner and top defenseman for the Calgary Flames. I mean, when you look at this roster right now, and let me just pull up the team.
Oh, he's the top dog. That's for sure.
He's the top dog. I mean, I like Rasmus Anderson, but he doesn't fill out the peripheral categories as much as Weegar. You've got Jake Bean in there, Kevin Ball, Daniil Miromanov, who I mentioned before as maybe a guy to watch out for playing with Mackenzie Weegar on the top D pairing. But when you're in categorical leagues and you have fantasy points for all of these categories, blocks, hits, shots on net, they all add up. I mentioned this before. Mackenzie Weegar is the number 7 defenseman I'm looking at for this list.
So I'm going to have to categorically just disagree, not to make a really bad pun there, Steele. When you're looking at his peripheral value, I'm going to lose that argument for sure. Not going to go there. You're right. 200 block shots, 194 hits. The value is there for sure. But if we're taking a look at the offensive production coupled with what I expect personally from this Calgary Flames team, one that I do expect to struggle once again, I'm not seeing it, especially when you have guys that in the NHL are going to bring 60, 70, even 80 points around him. And we're thinking he's going to regress to like 40. I just don't see it. Do I trust what you're saying in terms of all of the angles that he probably will cover, even on a bad season, which is what he does, blocking shots and throwing hits? Sure. And it makes him an attractive target, of course, but not over the names that I have and my guy and this is perfect, Miro Heiskanen. And look, because when I can, believe it or not, shocker, I can do the math and I can count that 97 block shots compared to 200 isn't nearly as good. 55 hits for Heiskanen to Weegar's 170 plus, not nearly as good. However, this is one of the best puck-moving defensemen in the NHL. His elite level upside, fantasy, defensively, offensively, Mackenzie Weegar's not even in the same realm. And let me just hit you with this argument, Steele. In the postseason last year, you saw the player Miro Heiskanen is going to be. 16 points in 19 games, bringing it at both ends of the ice, blocking a ton of shots. Also, the previous playoffs, when it mattered the most for the Stars, 12 points in 19 games. Yeah, the dip in the offensive production was there. The peripheral numbers aren't adding up to Weegar's. But if you're talking about skill level, upside, potential, a much better team, and a much better atmosphere to have an explosive breakout type season, it's not even close. Miro Heiskanen has to be on this list, in my opinion. I'm not going to tear you apart for it, but I can't wait to hear what other people think. Hit us in the comments. Steele doesn't have Miro Heiskanen in the top 10. Mackenzie Weegar's in there. I can't wait for you to take some more heat. That's how I feel, though. Over to you. I'm not going to hate on you too much.
Look, I've got some hot takes on this list. Some of them have panned out, or not on this list, just overall over the last 3 years of doing this podcast with you. I've had some really hot takes. Some of them have panned out my way. Some of them have not. Most of them have been pretty good. Some of them have been right back into my face. Just, a mouthful of shoe, if you will. Sometimes it's a rough go, but that's what this is for. We have differing opinions.
100%.
I think personally, when we talk about fantasy hockey, I think Miro Heiskanen is overvalued. I think people reach on this player right now. I think you can wait later in the draft to get Miro Heiskanen, and I'll finish that point after the break. We got so much more to continue talking about. The rest of this list, we've got the top 5 list, top 5 defensemen for hockey, fantasy hockey, on tomorrow's episode. So make sure you're staying tuned for that. But we'll come back after the break with more of this list on today's episode. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Once again, smash that subscribe button, hit the follow button, and leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us. Flip's been showing me we are up there. What are we? 13th national ranked right now in fantasy podcast right now.
Yep.
We're absolutely loving that. We love the feedback. We love all the comments we've been getting. So thank you so much for all the support. We've cracked the top 15 in the nation for fantasy sports right now. Unreal. We couldn't do it without you. So we got to give a thanks out to all of our listeners and supporters out there. So thank you so much for that. But continuing the conversation, I got to get back to this Miro Heiskanen point real quick. Again, personally, I think people overvalue Heiskanen. When you look at him, just take away fantasy hockey, you look at what he does on the ice. He is one of the smartest young defensemen in the game right now. He's a great puck mover from his own zone. He again, like what we saw in the playoffs is what you're going to see throughout the rest of his NHL career.
Thank you.
I have to see a little bit more this season from him. I need to see more shots. I need to see more blocks. I need to see him putting more physicality into his game. I need to see a little bit more when we talk about the best right now. Again, Cale Makar, Evan Bouchard, Quinn Hughes, Roman Josi, all those guys who we're probably going to be talking about tomorrow. He's not in that tier for me right now. And fantasy-wise, he's not even in the top 10. I understand why you would have him there. I love the potential he's showing right now. Doesn't crack the top 10 for me. He needs to get back up to 70 points, which he's only done that one time in his career. Last year was a dip, obviously, like you mentioned. But before that, he was only getting 35 points a season. I think losing Joe Pavelski might hurt this Dallas Stars team offensively a little bit as well. You know, my boy over there, Joe Pavelski, he's retired now. We don't have to talk about him fantasy-wise.
Yeah, the Stars will be fine. They're going to be
Stars will be fine, but I'm saying there's a lot of things going on. That's the reason for me. Maybe it doesn't make any sense out there to a lot of the listeners, but it makes sense to me. So I left them off this list. But over to you, my friend. Who do you have at the number 6 position?
First and foremost, I do need to show some love to our listeners. Being as high as we are on the charts, it's surreal. We do this for you guys, and thank you for the support. We couldn't do it without y'all. And I know I speak for Steele when I say I feel very lucky and grateful to come on this show, get the feedback, get the love that we get, and the hate too, Steele. And I think some of that's coming your way for today's show. However, we take it all in stride, pal. And like I said to you before, you make a take, it doesn't sit well, you show back up for work the next day, and we take it on the chin and we keep moving. So at number 6, it's Adam Fox. And I understand that he could be in your top 5, and maybe he is. However, for me, he just falls out of it. And we were just kind of talking about a couple of players here. Moritz Seider, the offensive upside of Miro Heiskanen, some of these players that you want to see more from in the offensive end. Adam Fox has been nothing but steady, putting up 70 points on the blue line. He has a Norris. He is on one of the best teams in the NHL. All of what he does, and I know, he's not exactly a banger league beauty, but 123 shots, blocks, 137 shots, it's low. But the blocks combined with what he does offensively and just how good he is, Steele, there are not many D-men in the NHL over the past 20 years that you can count on for perennial 70-plus point seasons. Adam Fox deserves to be in the middle or on this list, and I hope you have him on there because I didn't hear him in the honorable mentions. He takes number 6 for me as a very solid, you can't go wrong kind of pick at, hey, I'm saying much after like the 5th or 6th round, I'd be surprised if Adam Fox is still around.
Look, you and I are on it today. We are on the ball. Adam Fox comes in at the number 6
we didn't even plan
position.
this.
We didn't plan this at all. Obviously, we went a little bit haywire there with the number 7 pick, Mackenzie Weegar, Miro Heiskanen. But besides that, we have been on the same page here. Adam Fox comes in at number 6 for me as well. And maybe my tangent that I just talked about for leaving Miro Heiskanen off the list doesn't make any sense anymore because, again, Adam Fox doesn't really fill out those peripheral categories, which I love looking at. 44 hits, 123 blocks is actually pretty solid, but 137 shots for your top quarterbacking defenseman on your blue line doesn't make any sense. I need to see a little bit more of those categories filled out from Adam Fox. If you're getting over 23 minutes and you're quarterbacking that top power play unit, there is no reason that you should have less than 170 shots in a season when you're playing 72, 82 games. So for me, Adam Fox still needs to do a little bit more of getting pucks on net. A little, obviously he's a smaller defenseman out there. So physical game is not part of his game. The physical aspect is not part of his game. But like what you mentioned, when you bring in what he does offensively, 3 consecutive seasons of 70-plus points. He's the shooting percentage was at 12.4% this season. Power play juggernaut of 30-plus power play points the last 3 seasons as well. You absolutely have to have Adam Fox on this list. He's smart with the puck. He's been very durable over the last 3 seasons of his career as well. And again, he's getting better and better as the year goes on. One of the top power play units in the New York Rangers as well. You got to love this team. We love the team over here, the Blue Shirts podcast.
Unofficial Blue Shirts pod.
Adam Fox, both Flip and I have him at the number 6 position. So we've been on the same page here, except for that slight little path we took, a different path we took at the number 7. But look, we're on the same page here. You got to be absolutely loving it and tuning in to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod.
I'm excited to hear what our listeners have to say about your take on Mackenzie Weegar, good sir. I'm also intrigued to hear about our top 5, considering the names I didn't hear in honorable mentions and the names that weren't in our 10 through 6. Sounds like our list is going to be fairly close again. You and I don't talk about plus minus as a category very often. Plus minus is a statistic that, for obvious reasons, gets the scrutiny it should. However, Adam Fox has never finished in a negative plus-minus season in his career. He is always on the plus side of things, and there are some leagues out there, whether you like it or not, where plus-minus is a counted category. So throw the feather in his cap, one more feather in our cap for, I think, another great episode, my friend, but we'll let the fans and the listeners judge that one, and I'm hyped for tomorrow's top 5 D-men list.
Let us know what you think of our list so far in the comments below. And real quickly, if you want to be a part of our fantasy hockey listener leagues, we've got 2 different leagues coming up, the casual and competitive. We're running it back this season. So if you want to be a part of it, make sure to DM us on our Twitter account with your information, name and email. You can also find us on our Instagram account. So make sure if you want to be a part of it, DM us, get on the list. We've got tons of participants already wanting to join us. So if you want to be a part of it, you want to be part of the draw, make sure you get your name in there. And we appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Fridays when you can find our podcast, making it your first listen every single day. For your second listen, though, make sure you go check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Once again, from both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with all your bets. We hope you banged it out this weekend with the NFL back in session. And like we said, make sure you're tuning in for tomorrow's episode where we get to our top 5 defensemen in the fantasy hockey leagues for this upcoming season.
Peace, Mackenzie Weegar.